There was nothing else at all in the whole world but football.
Hi guys, Simon here from the FFF. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. Welcome to another episode of the FFF Show, where Mike Riot gives me his usual update on St. Pauli, the unavoidable topic of the European Super League, and as Mike is also a West Ham fan, we talked about the surprisingly impressive form of Jesse Lingard. Hope you all enjoy and take care. So I suppose there's no better place to start with you than St. Pauli. It's always the best place to start, I think. I see the nice shirt you've got on as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I splurged and got some stuff sent over from Germany. So, yeah, why not?
Nice. Of all the sort of St. Pauli merch I've seen, that's probably one of the best, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really liked it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, add that one to the basket. So, yeah, I love it. Love it. In all fairness, I could have spent a small fortune, but I was like, yeah, then you got your Brexit tax and stuff on it now. I was just like, have to reel it in a bit, but
yeah, I've just sort of adopted the same thing. I've just got a bit of a habit of buying new shirts. This is why I bought this Valencia shirt, like just looking for discounted football tops. And you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole. So I've had to sort of, control myself a little bit and make sure I don't dive too deep.
Now you've got your job going and the finances coming in, mate. You need to just kind of, you've had your splurge and just come in and reel it in.
That's what my missus is for. So, hopefully she can control me on that one. Yeah, St. Pauli, mate. How are they getting on?
Good, mate. Good. I know, obviously, I think last time we spoke, we said about how much of a good run they were on and stuff, getting themselves safe from relegation and stuff. But I said it wouldn't continue. Realistically, since then, I think it was after the Hamburg game that we last spoke. I think it was timed perfectly like that. Yeah, since then, we've just carried on. The run has just continued. We've had a couple of losses and a couple of what I would call pretty poor performances. But it's almost like, they play fantastically for a few weeks and then it's like, they just run out of gas and the performance was shocking. And then the following game, they're back up to the usual standards. So we all know in football that, we all have those games, regardless of which team you support. You could support Man United, Man City, whoever, and end up losing to Sheffield United at the bottom of the league. It happens. But realistically, form has continued. It's absolutely fantastic. Still up in the top half of the table, currently in 7th place. Still happy days in the St. Pauli camp, mate. I'm still loving life.
That's good, man. That's good. Because I think the last time you spoke as well, you said about how the sort of new January signings were a massive part to why the team was doing so well. But do you think there's any chance, because I think a lot of those are sort of loan signings, aren't they? Do you think there's any chance of them sort of sticking around for next season, or what do you reckon?
I think there is the possibility of Stojanovic, the keeper. He'll probably stick around, or he might stick around, I should say. I think there's the possibility we could actually get Salazar back again. I know he joined us at the start of the season, but he's one of our loan signings. I think we have that possibility of keeping him as well. I don't think he's ready to break into the Frankfurt team, especially with the form they're on at the moment. Marmoush, he's one of the big January signings who's done so much for us since he signed. I don't think we'll keep him. If anything, I think he was on the fringes of the Wolfsburg team anyway, but with the form that they're also in as well, he couldn't get a game in. So he came on loan in January. I think he could possibly, with the experience he's gained with us, go back to Wolfsburg and definitely still maybe bench, playing cup games, things like that. So I think he's probably going to go back to Wolfsburg and stick there. Or if he does go on loan, he might go on loan to a bigger team, maybe a first division team in another country or something. But I think he's almost sounds harsh saying it about your own club, but I think he's almost too big for us, and his form has proved that. Eric Smith, another of the January loan signings. I think there is an option to buy there, but he has been out with injuries. So I don't know if they'll probably take him on another 6 months or another season, really see. But Benatelli has been filling in for him, and he's been one of our players of the form, I should say. It's since we sort of hit form, he's been absolutely fantastic as well, especially over the last few games. He just really makes that. He just really makes the midfield tick. He just sits in the heart of that engine room, and just everything's so calm with him. So will we keep him? I don't know. I know that we will be looking at a new keeper in the summer, so we might keep Stojanovic, but yeah, Zalazar's the other possibility. I think 2 out of the 4 are possible. Eric Smith is a maybe, but I don't think Mamouche will do.
To me, it sounds as if I don't know whether it was Timo Schultz or whoever, but somebody at the team has obviously identified those January signings. And if it's the same person that's going to do that for the summer, I mean, it looks pretty bright. You might have the likes of Marmouche and some other players sort of leaving, but as long as you've got that similar type of recruitment going forward, then that's going to leave you in good stead, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. The thing is, we lost quite a few in the summer. We brought in bodies, but didn't necessarily fit, or necessarily even fit straight away. Aramu was one of them. He was brought in as a holding midfielder. And to be honest with you, in the games that I've seen him play and the times that he has come on, he tends to come on as a sub. I think when we're looking at sort of holding the game and sticking with what we got, he's actually come on leaps and bounds. I think whether it's that he's been working closely with another one of the players, but his passing's improved, his reading. So maybe end of the season we might need to look at Eric Smith. We've got a couple of other players coming back from long-term injuries. Is it Miyachi? He's another player that they'll hopefully be back in the summer. We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, it's a tale of two halves of the season, or the 2 windows. One not so great, one absolutely fantastic, and it just if we can go ahead this summer and have the same window as we had in January, fantastic. If we have another summer window like last summer, it's debatable. We could be back scraping around again next season. So yeah, it's going to be watch this space, but I'm interested to see how it goes in the summer.
Yeah, and maybe the form that the team's in at the moment, maybe that can sort of encourage and convince some of those loan players to stick around. Because I think if you had most of them there, and they could recognise that if we were to stay for another season, they've got a bloody good chance of promotion next year. If that same sort of team was there and they all stuck around, I think they could easily carry on this form and then fight their way up to back into the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I think if they sort of said, you know what, we're not going to go back to our clubs. We're not going to break into the first team. I mean, they're all, Zalazar and Mamouche, young lads. Maybe another season on loan before they can look to break into the other teams, into their parent clubs, as it were. They might look at it and go, do you know what? We know the place. We know the people that are around. We'll stick with another season. Fantastic if they do. I'd be absolutely over the moon. You're right. We could continue the form we're in now. Promotion, I think, would be a long shot, even next season, purely because looking at the stature of the clubs that are possibly coming down, I think next season's Zwei Bundesliga is going to be even harder than this year's. It's a scary prospect, when you've got the likes of Schalke and stuff coming down. But I think Hertha Berlin is another one that's potentially around there. I haven't checked for the last couple of match days, to be honest with you, on what teams are down there now. But there's some big names. it'll be interesting to see. Do you know what? Next season, if we had the similar or same players as we've got this season, I'd be happy with another flirt with the promotion, even if we didn't actually get it. I think that would be another good season for us if we can solidify, especially if we can bring in some more permanent signings as well, rather than loans. I don't think any of those players will come on permanent, but, there might be a few out there who will, maybe another kind of Bergstaller who came from Schalke. And yeah, he's scored some fantastic goals, or vital goals, I should say, that have helped us win games and pull clear.
Yeah. I wouldn't be too worried about Schalke, mate. I've seen them play this season.
Yeah, well, I know they've got a lot of issues off the pitch. So whether they're going to be able to put together a team that'll be able to mount a challenge to go straight back up is a different story. I think they've got, with the size of the club and the name, as it were, I think they'll have the pull to get some decent players in, but it's whether they can afford it, whether they can pay the wages. Yeah, I think they're going to be they could either hit the ground running and absolutely smash the league, or they could struggle and maybe not even stay in the league. It all depends what happens in the boardroom, as it were. And yeah, it's a shame to see such a great club and a great name kind of go through such things, but it happens across the world. And yeah, we'll see what happens next season.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to look at teams like Leeds United to see that there's no divine right to come back into that top league or whatever it be. So, it's a weird one with Schalke as well, because I think if you look at a club that's doing as poorly as that, and a big club, a gigantic club that has such history and such a profile, and then it ends up absolutely plummeting down the league, you usually sort of correlate that with a financial issue and financial problems. But I don't think there's been much of a financial issue at Schalke. It's just been poor decision after poor decision after poor decision, and there's just been a lot of bad appointments that have just led them to where they are. It's a weird one with Schalke.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's not necessarily, as you say, it's not a case of financial ruin, but if you don't buy the right players, if you've got a transfer budget of, say, 25 million for the season, you go and spend it on 3 players. If they're not the right players and they come in, they don't fulfill, then you haven't got that kind of room, especially if they're signing them on long contracts and stuff like that. Are they going to be able to move them on? There's a lot of sort of ifs and buts with every player that comes in. If you look at like West Ham, you've got players like Sebastian Haller and Felipe Anderson who came for big money and just didn't seem to work. So it's the same in any club. If you spend all your transfer budget on a couple of players and they don't work out, it causes you massive problems if you can't afford to then supplement buying a different player of the same sort of same position. So yeah, I think it will be an interesting one, though. As I say, there's some big names down there at the bottom of the Bundesliga. So yeah, next season's going to be interesting for sure.
I don't know, from seeing the way St. Pauli have played and just having that fighting spirit, and just the pure fire form that they're on at the moment. And as long as they, like we were sort of mentioning before, as long as they keep the majority of the players for next season, I'd put, if I was a betting man, I'd put a fair amount of money on St. Pauli going up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one next year. So yeah, watch this space.
If you like football films, then come check out the FFF Cinema, where I'm joined by guests, sometimes football fans, sometimes not, to review a specific football film. Give me 2 tickets to that football film right now. So for sort of reasons why I've really enjoyed St. Pauli and why I've sort of started following them a little bit more, and I was really considering going into another gear with St. Pauli and just trying to dive more into it. The reason why I've done that is because there was a certain thing, I'm sure you've heard of it, I'm sure our listeners have heard of it, unless they've been living under a rock, and that's the European Super League. That European Super League sort of left such a sour taste in not just my mouth, I imagine millions of football fans' mouths. And that was a reason that just made me think, I want to follow a team that actually cares about their fans, cares about much more than just making a quick buck. And it cares more about just money, essentially. And the European Super League for me has, I mean, there was always an element of falling out of love slowly for me when it came to football, especially this season. It's been so hard just in terms of there not being any fans, and then all of the racial sort of issues going on in football, and then the sort of massive disconnect between the rich and the poor, essentially. And yeah, it's been really, really hard. And then you just have something like the European Super League. It's just like the last straw on the camel's back. And luckily I am such a football fan that I don't think I will fall out of love. And I'm so glad they pulled out of it. But yeah, what's your thoughts on it, mate?
I mean, it just goes to show how these billionaire owners are literally look at football clubs like a business. It is one of the reasons why I love St. Pauli like I do. It's not run as a business. And to be honest with you, with the whole of German football, I mean, if you look at the founding teams of this European Super League, they probably did speak to your Dortmunds, your Bayerns and stuff like that. But because of the fact that it's a 50+1 fan ownership, they couldn't do it. And for that, I'm grateful. And it just goes to show that German football as a whole is the right way football should be, with so much involvement of fans. And it's difficult to sort of summarize really how I feel, because the club that I love would never even be in that kind of position to break away. However, knowing from a fan perspective, I know there was a lot of kick up from the supporters of every club, not just the ones who had joined, and rightly so. It really did remove competitive football away from European football. The fact that these 12 founding teams were guaranteed a place in Europe every year just goes to show that it just lost everything that football was about. As I say, it hadn't involved St. Pauli, it hadn't involved my old team, West Ham, who, as I say, I do still follow them, don't get me wrong. But I'll be honest with you, I think if the organisers of the ESL had come to the West Ham board, I think they'd have bitten their hand off. And I think there are many clubs out there who would have quite happily sold their soul. I will give credit to Chelsea, because I think they were one of the first who actually came out and went, yeah, we kind of had to jump on this, because I think, what was it they said? The train was leaving the station and they had to make a decision. However, it transpired that it was a train to nowhere. And they admitted that. They admitted it was a last minute thing and were one of the first teams to drop out. So credit where credit's due. But yeah, it was just built on greed. And it's built on the fact that, as I say, these clubs are now run like a business. It's sickening to see the way that, clubs like Arsenal, who, no offense, are not having the best of seasons, let's put it that way,
No,
were
that's
quite
true.
happy to sell themselves out to guarantee European football. I don't know any Arsenal fans that would have, well, many. I'm sure there would have been one or two who'd have been quite happy to, have a midweek European game every week. But I think the vast majority spoke up and voiced their disapproval that even though they're absolutely having a stinker this season, they were still not prepared to sell out the club to guarantee that European football. So, hats off to the fans for really making their voice heard. Hats off to a lot of the players who also stood up against it. I think Liverpool were under Jordan Henderson's Twitter account or his Instagram or something, posting the thing that said the players are united in being against it. Fair play to them. The people that write in their checks are willing to sell out the club, and they're still willing to turn around and go, this isn't what we want. It's just the greed of 12 individuals or companies or consortiums who are running these clubs that literally saw the pound signs, or the euro signs, I should probably say. Yeah, it's typical as well. If you look at the actual 12 founding teams, they were all what I would consider names, not even necessarily the biggest teams in Europe as it stands. If you look at the Italian teams, you had was it the two Milan teams and Juventus? Well, Juve, yeah, they're one of the biggest clubs in European football, don't get me wrong, but both of the Milan teams have not always been the most consistent in getting into Europe and stuff. Again, saw an opportunity to sell it out and did. Real Madrid and Barcelona, well, they are just companies. To be honest with you, I think if they actually left the Spanish Liga, I think if they left that, it would actually make the league a whole better. And Atletico Madrid as well, which was one that actually surprised me. But if the other two left La Liga, sorry, I think it would actually make Spanish football a more enjoyable thing to watch.
That's true.
So yeah, the team that actually really shocked me as well was PSG. PSG declined to actually join it, even though the owners purely bought that club because they knew they'd walk the league every year. Bit of investment, and that the French league is quite weak as a general rule. But they declined to join it, even though that their main goal is to win the Champions League. I don't know if it's whether they thought, well, if these guys all leave that, we've got a chance of actually winning it. But realistically, they declined it. And that really surprises me. But fair play to them. If that's what they were willing to do, they could have gone on I think they were looking at doing invitationals to clubs outside of these 12, and they may have joined on that basis. But yeah, to actually decline being a founder was actually quite a shock to me, actually.
A team that shocked me the most for actually being included in that European Super League. Call me a typical Arsenal fan here, but how on earth Spurs managed to get a seat at the table is ridiculous. I mean, Arsenal, you could argue, and it's like you say, we've been having a stinker for like the last 10 years. Well, we haven't won a title for the last 15, 16 years. So it's, there's probably an argument that we shouldn't have been there at the table, but Spurs being there, included in this talk, is ridiculous. What on earth are they there for? But I think it's all just built on stature and sort of recency and the amount of money and the deeper those pockets go. Here you come to the European Super League. So it's a bit of a strange one for me, but also for me, I'd like to know your thoughts on how much of these fan protests actually forced those Premier League teams to pull out. Because for me, I think the reason wasn't necessarily the fans, as much as I hate to say that, and it pains me to say it because I'd love this romantic idea for it to be because of the fans. But I think this is more to do with money, and it's all to do with money, to be honest. I think the reason why they pulled out is because UEFA just UEFA basically said to those big elite teams that, come back to the negotiating table. That's perhaps one of the reasons. Another reason was we will slap on all these sorts of punishments if you don't pull out of the European Super League. And another one was just, sweetening the deals a little bit more. So, as I say, I think it was more financial reasons as to why those teams pulled out, and opposed to it being because of the power of the fans, unfortunately.
I'd agree. I would say that they are definitely factors in the reason why. I do believe that possibly some of the teams probably pulled out due to fans. As I say, Chelsea for me is the one that really sort of stood out with the things that they said and stuff. But their fans were probably some of the most vocal. As soon as I can't remember who they were playing, but they had a match day and all the fans turning up outside, where Petr Cech had to literally go out there and clear the fans out the way to let the bus through. I don't like to give them credit because, there's obviously that hatred of most London clubs for us, and Chelsea being up there at the top, or near the top anyway. But, their fans really made a lot of noise. And I genuinely do believe that when they came out and said, yeah, we kind of jumped on this last minute because if we didn't take this opportunity, would we ever get it again? The fans have turned around and said, yeah, we don't want this. And I think it is a possibility. I think that they saw the marketing aspect as you say, financially driven. If the fans start to go, then they're not going to get the revenue from merchandise and things like that. So I think that was part of it. I think a lot of the threats from UEFA and FIFA as well, saying that they'll ban them from like the players from the World Cup and stuff. And I think that was part of it as well. But I do like to believe that, especially in this country, I can't speak about the rest because I haven't heard about the fan noise from the other countries. But I do believe that it did play, I would say, a significant factor. Was it the biggest one? I don't know, but I would like to say a significant one. Arsenal fans have obviously come out in protest. Man United fans have come out in protest. Chelsea fans have. The quietest ones I've actually heard are Spurs. And I don't know if that's because I think all Spurs fans have a delusion of grandeur anyway when it comes to their club. They believe they're this big club, and yet, they're the chief bottlers of the Premier League.
Dusty trophy cabinet.
Yeah, exactly that. And it just goes to show that they lost another final the other day. I think that's an interesting one as well. Did Mourinho leave because of the Super League? I mean, the guy's got a gob on him. He's not afraid to speak his mind. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was sacked due to that. But yeah, Tottenham fans, from what I've seen on social media, they've been fairly quiet. I don't know, maybe they just saw this as that guarantee that they'll actually get into Europe. Because, obviously they're struggling now. They're still badgering on about, I can't believe, we're behind West Ham and all this sort of stuff. Well, suck it up. You're not as big as you actually think you are. And just because you've got this nice fancy, God knows how many £1 million stadium now, you're still the same shit team that you were last season, the season before, and the season before that. So I do, as you say, I do believe fan power definitely had something to do with it, but whether that was a decision about the fans, sorry, how do I put this? A decision made because of the fans, because they saw the financial implications of losing the supporters, or whether it was, genuinely the fact that they went, we didn't realise our fans aren't going to like this, which shows a massive disconnect from board to the general public. But I'd like to think it was. But that's just the romance of football, isn't it? Where fans actually do still have an influence over the game.
Yeah. No, I it's a weird one for me as well. I mean, just the whole concept of it, like you say, without it there actually being any competition, was just a weird one for me. I mean, had they actually thought of a better concept and thought of something that does encourage competition more, then I think some fans possibly would have got behind this a bit better. But it was just one that it just didn't represent sport in any positive or decent way at all. And it was just literally a cash cow. And I think that's the one thing that everybody saw right through it. And it smacked of ridiculousness as well when sort of these sort of presidents of these elite teams were coming out saying it was to save football, especially Florentino Perez of Real Madrid saying, we're trying to save football. The only thing you're trying to save, Perez, is Real Madrid, because they're in absolute financial dire straits at the moment. It's weird as well because with Real and Barcelona, I think they were the only real serious teams behind it because they needed it so bad. The amount of financial debt that those are in is absolutely colossal. So they needed it more than those other teams. I think the other teams, like you say, you were mentioning about getting on the train before it leaves the station. I think they just, because Arsenal came out with a statement as well. They said we had to ask ourselves what's better, a European Super League with or without Arsenal. So I think it was just for most of those teams, bar Barca and Real Madrid, it was just about being a part of something and just being careful to sort of join the future of football, what they believe to be the future of football. Whereas Real Madrid and Barcelona, they were desperate and are desperate for it to go ahead. Because I think even Perez was saying after those teams pulled out, he was saying that they legally can't pull out because they've signed legally binding contracts, which is a funny thing as well. It almost reminded me of Donald Trump when he lost the election, saying that I haven't lost the election. So it's a funny one, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you look at the main instigators behind it, it is definitely your Barcelona, your Real Madrid, and I think Juventus were up there as well. I think the president of Juventus was one of the main people, but he was going to be on the main board or the president, or so. I know Perez was one of the main guys as well. And I think that's the thing. I think when you had those three leaders, I think Atletico Madrid actually pulled out quite rapidly as well. I think when they saw that there was going to be the collapse, I think they were one of the teams who pulled out quite quick. But yeah, I would completely agree with you. But that's because for me, Real Madrid and Barcelona aren't football teams. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've actually been to the new camp and I've done the stadium tour and stuff. It's an absolutely phenomenal place. And when you actually see that it's more than just a football team, it's a sports club as a whole. And the money they invest in a lot of that stuff, yes, but it's still, that's what it's about. It's this, I don't even want to say a novelty, but I'm sure if you look at a lot of the fans that actually go to these, to the games and stuff, there's a lot of tourists there. And I know it's something that kind of creeps in with the Premier League and stuff, but as far as Real Madrid and Barcelona are concerned, it's a tourist attraction. So they saw this opportunity to fund their ever-increasing debts. Is it Real Madrid that's actually like massively owned by a bank or something as well, because they owe them so much money? Yeah, something like that. I've got a friend who loves Spanish football, and he was telling me about it. But yeah, I think that just kind of goes to show, why they needed this financial incentive. But I'll be honest with you, I think if it had gone ahead and stuff, I wouldn't have been surprised if companies like Sky and stuff had boycotted it. I think a lot of the sponsors wouldn't have been there, because they, for all intents and purposes, it's money driven. But I do believe that they saw this as a potential sort of slippery slope. It might have gone well for a season or two, but the novelty would have just worn off. And it was just that it's a very Americanized sport, where there is no real relegation and stuff. If you look at the Major League Soccer, there is actually a tier below that as well. is it the American Soccer League, I think, or something like that. You can't actually get promoted, and the clubs are actually franchises, not actual football clubs. And that's the way that this kind of the Super League was going. It was going to be this Americanized franchise. And I think one of the things that surprised me as well was not only that Paris Saint-Germain declined to join, but there was actually 6 clubs from the Premier League were invited. I think the next most was actually 3, which was obviously from Italy and Spain. Mm-hmm. So I think that just goes to show the power of the Premier League as well, and the size of it, that they were having to attract half of the 12 founding members were from one league alone. So yeah, I think that's what it is. I think they know the strength of the teams that play in the Premier League, and they saw an idea that, well, if we invite these to play against us, it'll bring us in more money because of the size of the revenue that they can generate from it. So yeah, I genuinely believe that. But yeah, it's definitely left a bit of taste in my mouth, the whole situation as it stands. Really, really has.
Yeah, it's funny how you say as well, because there's 3 of those Premier League teams were American owned. So it's definitely it would have headed toward more of an American model. And I think the Premier League is perhaps attracting more American owners, and it seems as if it's sort of heading that way. And I think elite football at that level was always going to head toward that elite sort of surface. And perhaps with the European Super League essentially collapsing, perhaps that was the glass ceiling breaking, and perhaps hopefully we'll see things sort of even out a bit better and level out a bit more, and we'll see more of hopefully the fans will drive more of a focus towards it being to more of a traditional type of football that we're used to. And I know there was a bit more of a drive to football trying to be like it is in Germany with that 50+1 model. Hopefully we can see something like that. I don't think it will, just because I think football in England and football in the Premier League and La Liga, these sort of elite levels of football, it's so deep rooted in financial elitism that you can't get out of that. As much as I'd love it to have that 50+1 model, I just don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. I think it's too far gone now. I don't think it definitely wouldn't happen in La Liga. There's no way that'd happen. I think the only way it would really happen, obviously there was the rumblings about the takeover at Arsenal, from a lot of, I think there was ex-players, and wasn't it the guy who owns Spotify, and he
Daniel
was
Ek.
That's it, yeah. He's a guy from
Sweden.
Sweden. He said that he's always liked Arsenal and stuff like that. So, it'd be nice if there was genuine fans who came in to buy the club. It's just whether they're willing to invest the money in it. But the fact that the players and stuff were getting on board to try and form a consortium to do it. I know it happened years ago as well at Sunderland, I think, with Niall Quinn was their was it their chairman or something like that as part of the consortium. It does happen. It would be nice to see that kind of movement, but the problem is I don't think even players who are multi-millionaires in themselves, I don't think they've got the finances to actually form consortiums to actually buy the clubs that they love playing for. There are very few out there who have got the marketing levels of people like David Beckham, who is basically the head of that consortium that's set up into Miami. It would be nice to see, but as I say, I think it's too deep rooted. And the problem is, I think partially with the fans. Fans want instant success. Fans want to win the league, win cups, get into Europe. You can't do that without the financial backing. The uproar and stuff with West Ham and the board there with Gold, Sullivan and Brady, because Sullivan's a multi-billionaire and struggles to invest in West Ham, yet there are, you know, oil sheikhs and stuff that are coming in and buying clubs, and yeah, it's too deep rooted. But I think part of that is down to the fans. As much as I hate to blame them after praising them a minute ago for stopping the ESL, at the same time, I think their greed for success breeds the desire for these big companies, consortiums, and rich people coming in and buying the clubs, because they can see that if they grow the club and get this success, more sponsors will come in, and it all just sort of feeds through that way. So yeah, while I just praised the fans 5 minutes ago, I'm now sort of slating them for their greed in that respect. Nothing like being controversial, but never mind.
Like on Facebook, follow on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube, do all that shit, please.
So speaking of West Ham, and let's just, you know, veer away from the sort of cancerous financial shit show of the European Super League, and just talk about Jesse Lingard, mate, because he has been an absolute revelation. Because I think we did a show talking about the England lineup, and we picked our sort of, you know, our England 11s going forward. And I think at the time we sort of scoffed at the idea of Jesse Lingard perhaps being in those 11s. But I mean, if you look at it now, he's pretty much, I wouldn't say cemented or a sure, you know, sort of choice, but I'd definitely consider him, at least have him on the bench. But he's been phenomenal for West Ham. He's been brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on the loan signings for St. Pauli in January, but I think when it comes to January signings, there are probably very few who have hit the ground running like Jesse Lingard. I mean, the guy's been an absolute beast. He's had there's probably ulterior motives, don't get me wrong. You know, he's really struggled to get any game time at Man United, which is surprising with some of United's performances. He's a player of known quality. He's been at the club for years. I can't understand how that move even came about. I was very cynical about him actually coming to West Ham. Was he just coming for the paycheck? Not really, because it's a loan. You know, why was he coming? We didn't need another player like that. We got rid of Haller. We didn't sign another centre forward. But bugger me, he's literally playing about 4 different positions every week. He'll play anywhere across the front. He'll play as a false 9. Just, the guy's been on a completely different level. And I can't recall probably many better signings that have transformed. No, not even necessarily transformed, because West Ham was still doing all right at the start of the season. I had this debate with Twitter on with someone a few weeks ago. But the way he's played, the goals he's created, the goals he's scored, that has earned probably more than West Ham have actually paid Man United in loan fees and stuff, because where we are in the table, regardless of whether it ends up as a Champions League place, which I don't think will happen, whether it ends up as a Europa League place, that's a possibility, or even if we finish in 7th or 8th, that's a big paycheck still, because you get paid more money dependent on where you finish on in the league. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to that kind of thing, the amount of money that he has actually earned the club just in that alone, fantastic. But yeah, what a player. I mean, I think he's probably in the best form of his life. Is it he's flourishing because he's a big fish in a small pond? No offense to West Ham, but you know, he was at Man United and he was just another fish in the lake. He's now come and started playing like a man possessed. Is it just the fact that he's got a point to prove to Man United, you know, kind of giving them the middle finger and saying, you know, you haven't played me all season, you've let me go out on loan at 28 years old. This is the kind of thing that kids do. I'm going to prove you wrong, and absolutely torn it up? Or is he just loving life? I don't know. But, you know, from a West Ham fan perspective, you're not going to argue. I don't care about his motives. At the end of the day, you know, he's doing what he's doing. And I think West Ham fans are grateful, genuinely are, which is something that you don't hear of, that they're actually grateful about something. They're actually grateful. And so many people I've seen on the world of Twitter all coming out and going, do you know what? I hold my hands up. Jesse Lingard, what signing? I hold my hands up. David Moyes, what a brilliant season he's having. You know, so many people are actually coming out and voicing that kind of thing. And it's good to see. It's good to hear the vibes. But yeah, I would love to see him at West Ham next season, whether it's another year's loan or whether they get him on a cheapy cheap because he's only got 12 months left on his contract. I don't know, but I would love to think that he would love life in London. You know, we could get him up on the cheap because there's no option to buy in his contract, which is quite depressing because if that had been negotiated in, I'm sure they probably would have saved themselves 10, 15 million quid on his asking price now compared to what it was back then. But yeah, I would love to see him back at West Ham next season. And genuinely, I think he's a missing piece. He's that worldy player that we've not had since Payet. And well, yeah, Payet, the last time we had someone of that kind of stature, we ended up in the Europa League. We got knocked out in the qualifying rounds, but still, you know, it just shows how one player can make such a difference. Take them out, flirted with relegation, Bilic got sacked. You know, there's so many things like that, that the issues that were caused there, and just that one player leaving just caused the team to capitulate. And we scraped relegation by the skin of our teeth. I think that was the season that Moyes actually first came in. When Bilic was sacked, I think he replaced, Moyes kept us up, and then he was sacked for Pellegrini. He had a good first season, second season not so good. Sack him, bring Moyes back in, and ever since then, he deserves the crack at the whip. I was one of his biggest critics, massive critic of him, because I just think he's been so negative. Yeah, I'm seeing a different side of Moisey. Bringing in Lingard, a stroke of genius, and just goes to prove that he doesn't just want to play a flat 4-4-2 or, you know, sit behind the ball at every opportunity. He's actually got the team playing fantastic football. And yeah, his signing of Lingard is as I say, it's one of the signings of the season. I know it was only in January, but just what he's done at the club is just phenomenal.
No, I've been nothing but impressed, to be honest. And I think you bring up a good point when you sort of say that he isn't necessarily the thing that's completely transformed West Ham. He's almost been like a sort of cherry on the top, because you always had a very good foundation, and West Ham were doing really well. Not really well, but you're doing quite well before Lingard turned up. He just took you to another level, because you have that foundation based on sort of, you know, Declan Rice, the Kufal at right back, I believe, and then Souček as well. And then you've got obviously Michail Antonio and Jared Bowen as well. You've got some really good players in there. And then you just sort of add an on-fire Lingard into that, and it was an absolute, you know, lighting of the touch paper. So it's it's been brilliant to see that. And I think with Lingard as well, if you were to sort of put yourself in Lingard's shoes, would you go back to Man United? Because, like, to be honest, you're going to play second fiddle to Bruno Fernandes, whereas if you stay at West Ham United, you're guaranteed to just carry on doing what you're doing. I personally, if I was in Lingard's shoes, I would just stay at West Ham and you know, just know that you're going to play game in, game out, and you're going to have a massive part to play at West Ham. That, for me, should, and you'd imagine it should sort of encourage him and convince him to stay.
Yeah, I agree. If I was in his shoes, I would be looking at that. I'd be like, I couldn't get a game before I went. I've hit this amazing form. My stock has just risen through the roof. I'm going to go back to Man United and I might play cup games. I might get sub appearances. It's almost like the favourite kids at school kind of scenario. You always have the same kids turning up in every same sports team, regardless of whether they were good enough or not. It was always the favourites. It'll be exactly the same as that. You are.
So I wish I knew how that felt.
Yes, so do I, mate, I tell you. But I mean, it's exactly the same at Man United. If he goes back there, is he going to get picked in the first team? Is he going to play 30 games a season? You know, taking the cups out of it and stuff. Is he going to play 3/4 of the season in Premier League games? No, he's not. He has 1-2 bad weeks. That's it. He'll be benched. If he's not benched, he'll probably just be dropped from the squad completely. If I'm honest, if I was Jesse Lingard, I probably wouldn't stay at West Ham either, because I don't think that they are at the level that he wants to be playing at his time in his career. He's a pacey player, which, let's be honest, at probably 28 years old, he's probably hit his peak. He's only probably got 4 more years at top level, I reckon. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. If West Ham somehow managed to beat Chelsea to the Champions League, finish in 4th spot, there is that option there, at least, you know, to play for a season there. You know, with all these different clauses that players can negotiate into their contracts, like, you know, if we don't make it into Europe, you've got to sell me for X amount of money and all this sort of stuff. Your relegation clauses and stuff as well. He could do something like that, sign a 3-year contract, but basically say, if we don't finish in Europe every season, flog me. Personally, I think, though, he should be looking at clubs who will be playing in the Champions League.
If you had to choose a club, which club would you say his level would be at then?
I think if he looked at clubs abroad, genuinely, I think PSG he'd end up in the same situation as Man United. He'd probably play 50% of the games a season, because they've got such a large squad, because they basically have a league squad and a Champions League squad, and you can see the way they rotate and play their best players. But
Red Bull Leipzig, perhaps, somewhere like that.
You know what? Yeah, I think somewhere like that. I will always come back to Germany because it's the football that I know and currently love. Not just St. Pauli, but through and through. I've loved German football for years now. I think it's the most like the Premier League. I think he has the potential to go to a club who will probably qualify the Champions League every season. I think if you're looking at it, I think you're looking at Bayern. I don't think he would get the game time, not with the players that they've got. I mean, yeah, they've got Sane on one wing, they've got Kingsley Coman, Serge Gnabry as well. Where the hell did that come from? But someone like Leipzig, someone like even Dortmund teaming up with Jadon Sancho as well. You know, you put them with Haaland as well. That's one hell of a strike force. But yeah, I think when you're looking at clubs like that, if I was him, I would definitely be taking a look at Germany. English players have been proven now to actually succeed in German football, not just with Sancho and stuff, but even players like Guardiola, Lookman and stuff actually did all right at Leipzig.
Bellingham.
And then, yeah, Jude Bellingham as well. You know, they seem to sort of poach the youngsters and stuff. And there was that Arsenal lad who went on loan to, was it Hertha Berlin?
Hoffenheim with Reece Nelson.
That's it, yeah. And he did all right there as well. So English players seem to just slot straight into German football. At 28 years old, you don't want to be spending a season kind of trying to get into the lifestyle and you know, find the style of play. You know what? He could go to somewhere like Portugal. As stupid as it sounds, he could go and play for Benfica or Porto. get in their teams. I mean, is it Porto, I think, took Felipe Anderson from West Ham. So it shows the standard of the league is not that great for a player who was kind of getting mixed reviews at West Ham. You know, they signed that player, and admittedly it was a loan, and he's not been the most successful. But if they were willing to take a punt on Lingard, you know, it'd be a worldy player in that league. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I don't think Spain would be any good for him. Italy, I don't think is necessarily the right kind of football. So for me, I think, yeah, German football. I think he needs to be looking at the German league. If he wants to leave the Premier League, that's where he should be looking.
Yeah, no, you're definitely spot on with that. I think I just you know, when you were sort of talking about it now, I honestly think Dortmund would be a fantastic fit for him. I can actually just envision him in a Dortmund shirt right now when we talk about it. But yeah, that would be a really good fit. Right, mate. I'm gonna have to say goodbye and sort of end the chat here, I'm afraid. Arsenal are currently playing, so I want to try and catch the game. We're just kicking off right now on the hour, so I'm going to go shoot off and catch the game. Pretty big game for Arteta and for Arsenal. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this one, but I think we'll be all right.
West Ham as well, mate. To be honest with you.
What's that? Sorry.
And for West Ham as well.
Are they playing?
If Arsenal win the Europa League, that'll be a fifth place in the Champions League. And then if they don't qualify, it means fourth place could actually turn into Europa League. So
you're an Arsenal.
It's got quite a few connotations for this time, mate. So I'm not going to be rooting for you guys, I'm honest with you. But, yeah, all the best anyway.
I thought I'd try. It's going to be a big one. It's absolutely evenly poised. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But we'll see. We always manage to Arsenal things up. So yeah, cool. Thanks again, Mike. Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah, definitely. That always keeps me smiling. So yeah.
Anyway, mate. Yeah, I'll let you go and go watch the footy.
Cool. Cheers, Mike. Take it easy, buddy.
Speak to you later.
Thank you so much for listening to the Triple F. If you could please drop a like on our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter, that would be massively appreciated. Hope you're all keeping safe, and thanks again for listening to the Triple F.